You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Start spreading the news.
Frank, is that
FDRA and FFANY have wed. You wanna be a part of it. FDRA and FFANY, and eventually in New York. Welcome back, everybody. That's just
have we lost members? We might have lost members.
The listens don't plummet. The listens only go up when there's songs and
This is
revelry.
true. This is true.
We're building an audience here. We're not losing an audience. Be positive,
Yep.
Matt. Come on.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. It's COVID. I'm trying.
That's all right. That's all right. I know, part of the big challenges, and I know we'll talk about some of this today, is right off the bat, folks, I know there is COVID fatigue setting in. I know people want to get out and about. They're tired of being in their basements. God knows that we are as well. But a little bit longer, right? We've seen some positive news come out about some vaccines, two at least at this point, maybe more on the way.
Yep.
It looks like towards next spring and summer, we're going to see a turn. We're going to see an opportunity for large swaths of at-risk populations to be protected. We're gonna get back out there. We're gonna start mingling again. But until that time, we just need to lock it down a little bit more for our fellow citizens. And
I hear you.
I hope it's a little bit easier because the election's over. The stress of that is over. We're past that. Now we can get into the holiday spirit and remember our fellow man a little bit, and look out for each other a little bit more. So that's right off the top. I just want to make that pitch. But this show really is about what's happening behind the scenes with FFANY and FDRA, right, Matt?
It is. And what's happening behind the scenes is all positive, Andy, in spite of the environment that we are in. It's all positive. And that is mainly because my partner on the other side, John Heron, who is, I think this is his third time being on FDRA. He had a little snippet on the Rotisodes, what we used to call them. Then he had his full show. He graduated to that. Then we went and merged with his organization and we acquired his talents as a strategic marketplace advisor. And so I'm super excited to have John on the program today. So he and I can really talk, and Andy and Jasmine can talk about this marriage that Andy so eloquently sang about coming into the show in his best Sinatra voice. And that is the merger of FDRA and FFANY. So John, you have fully graduated into the upper echelon of the Shoe In Show, which is still rock bottom, but at the upper echelon. And we are glad that you're on the program.
Thanks, Matt. And I just want to point out that singing bit was not discussed at all in the pre-show. Like what we were talking about, what we were going to talk about. I did not know that we were going to sing. And Andy, if you can please not do that again.
I did it on purpose because I don't like to script out the show at all. So that's just kind of a reminder to everybody that things are going to happen off the cuff, and that's why people watch and listen to our show.
Exactly right.
There's a genius to it, my friend. You just can't catch on quite yet, but we'll help you along. We'll help you along, John. Don't worry, we got you.
Yeah, that was scary. But anyway, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the kind words, Matt. It's definitely been a weird year to merge and go through what we've gone through, but it's been good, as you said, nonetheless.
All right, so let's hit the ground running, right? So we've come together as two organizations in COVID, in a year when market weeks are actually not happening. Some might look at that and say, well, that's strange. Why would you do that? I think it's actually the perfect time because we are in the middle of an industry reset as it relates to what do market weeks look like in New York? What do they look like around the country? What are the right dates to meet the needs of an industry that's diverse from a production and design development schedule? And so why is this the best time in your mind for us to have come together to try to figure these things out, John?
Well, like we've talked about an awful lot, and I hope we'll talk about it now so that the broader listening group and industry can know. But there was so much overlap on our boards as it was, and so we would go into the meetings. And I think the interesting thing was probably last December we held our board meetings back to back, if you remember, at 24 West 57th, and you guys went first at 1:30, and then Fanny had its board meeting a couple hours later at 3:30. And it was basically the same group of people. There was some independents from a Fanny board and some independents that were on the FDRA board, but the reality that we're not big enough as an industry anymore to have competing organizations that are essentially the same people talking about the same issues, doing the same things. And so by bringing people together, it really it saves companies resources. We can collaborate on each other's strengths and really represent what's best for the industry, not what's best for the FDRA or what's best for Fanny or what's best for any isolated group of people. And hopefully, the goal is going to be to remain a pretty wide tent and get everyone's input and get everyone's buy-in to what we're doing and do what's best for the industry going forward. So, look, the timing of it, I think there's been discussions for the last 5+ years about doing it, and the timing of it just when COVID hit, we were already going down the road, and then COVID hit, and people's purse strings tightened, and people's everything changed, and it fell into place rather nicely.
Yeah, it certainly did fall into place rather nicely. Okay, so now that we've set the stage of the reason to do it, kind of the genesis behind the idea. Let's talk about how, we're going to leverage this partnership to the betterment of the industry. One of the things that was a priority for me, and I know a concern for some within the Fanny world who weren't necessarily as familiar with FDRA, was that we would acquire Fanny and then we would kind of sweep them under the rug and we would move on with our lives. And, we wouldn't put a lot of energy and effort into the revitalization of Fanny. And some thinking maybe the time had passed for the need for Fanny. Some thinking that I may not need trade shows altogether. So why would I even worry about it? But in my mind, I wanted to, at the outset, set a tone that Fanny, New York Market Weeks are a priority. Clearly, broader market weeks in the industry are a priority. We spent a lot of our time traveling the country, going to these trade shows and trying to serve our members as best we can. But secondarily, we wanted to ensure that, we're in the process of rebalancing our board and bringing over key representation from the Fanny board that was not on the FDRA board. And we've also moved to create a working group, a marketplace working group that are key industry leaders that will help us kind of navigate the next frontier of marketplaces, whether virtual or in person or a hybrid. So, John, as our marketplace advisor over the next 6 months, what do you think the priorities should be for the industry using the mechanisms I just laid out within FDRA to ensure that we have, really robust market weeks, even during COVID, but in particular after COVID?
Well, great question, Matt. You mentioned the working group that we committed. I'll just start with that. So Fanny essentially was a working group for what was best for the marketplace in the footwear industry. And obviously it always revolved around New York City because that's where the majority of Fanny members called home, had showrooms and, would attract retailers to come to Manhattan to go into their showrooms and view their new lines, view their product launches, and then everything that happened along the lines with that, turned into what a market week was, whether it was the networking, the cocktail parties, the charitable, the awards, and the various leadership meetings that took place. So we formed a working group to continue that effort to lead and say, hey, so what that group is going to talk about is quite simply, hey, what's the frequency? How often should we get together as an industry? What's the location? Is it, does it maintain itself as Manhattan because that's where so many of the American footwear companies are based? What is the timing? Is it August and February? Is it June and December? Is it something Is it all 4? Is it something different from that? And those are the conversations we want to have. And I think the great thing about it is that everyone involved realizes that there's not a right answer for everyone. And everyone's going to have to acquiesce a little bit to what's best for the industry, because fast fashion has a very different calendar than comfort. Athletic has a very different calendar than dress. And so the market weeks are changing dramatically. I think what everyone has discovered in COVID is that you don't need to be face to face to sell product and to debut lines. There's certain companies in our working group that have said to me, "Hey, we're never going to get together at market week at shoe shows like we used to and debut lines." I mean, obviously that's different for every company, but there's a lot of people that have found so many efficiencies in bringing their sales meetings and bringing their sales efforts online. And I think also everyone agrees that there's a need for us as an industry to get together, and there's a need for us as an industry to congregate. And so I hope to use the FDRA's huge influence in the industry to consolidate that point of view and get people to agree on, okay, this might not be perfect for me, but this is what's right for the industry. And so I'm going to put my corporate support behind it. And again, I compliment you and Andy and the whole team at the FDRA, because you've built such a strong consensus in the industry for making decisions and leading the industry. So I think we have a chance to accomplish it, and again, work within the different groups that are out there.
You know, I think there's an old saying. It's if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? So this is a part call out too for folks who may have done Market Week in the past but have dropped off, or have learned about FFANY or FDRA but never really got involved in the industry. And this is a time where we're killing sacred cows. Obviously, everybody is. We're changing how we're doing business. We're changing how we look at market weeks, what those will look like, just as John said. And this is a huge opportunity for everybody in the shoe industry, from small retailers, small brands, to large retailers, large brands, to have a voice at the table and sit at the table and have these conversations. But to do that, you've got to join. In the past, I know there's been a lot of companies who have kind of floated and free read on other companies who participate and who contribute and who pay dues and who get involved. And there's the table setting is being done right now. And if you're not involved and you're not paying dues and you're not sitting at the table, then you're going to be on the menu, and you're not going to have much of a choice when brands at the table start making these decisions around exactly what John said, the frequency. How often do we need to have this? What kind of market weeks can we reimagine digitally? What kind of market weeks look like physically? Can you separate market week into product categories and types? These are huge, huge things that our industry has to grapple with and talk to each other about. And ultimately, the industry figures it out. But again, it'll be those people sitting at the table. And they're going to make the menu items, and they're going to determine how it's going to play out and where it's going to go. So this is a call out for folks out there who are not FDRA members or FFANY members. Now that we've merged, it's time to get on as a member. It's time to sit at the table. It's time to make this industry stronger together. It's a huge opportunity for a lot of folks out there to make their voice heard, especially for their business. Obviously, everybody sees their businesses transforming, and these are the huge opportunities to make it work for you. And for what ideas you may have in the future. We've heard fantastic ideas from folks who normally don't speak up, who are becoming more and more vocal because their business is on the line, or they have a fantastic idea for what the future may look like. And we're all ears, but you got to be sitting at the table, folks. You got to be sitting at the table. And our table is a big table, right, Matt? It has many, many seats. It's a huge feast, usually. Maybe I'll sing. I was almost going to sing What's the Frequency, Kenneth from REM right after John mentioned frequency, because that really just tickled my fancy. But then I realized that John would probably come through this mic like Ghost Dad and strangle me. So I decided not to do that.
You're dropping some 90s references here.
But I think, for Market Weeks, exactly what John said is we formulated this ability for people to talk to each other and hash out things and bring ideas forth. And the best ideas are going to win out in this environment. And maybe we make a digital platform where we see digital market weeks. Maybe we figure out the physicality. And I guess this is the other thing that we should talk about too, is obviously people cannot really get back together until there's vaccines and people feel safe, and people are safe in that environment. And we've seen some articles about New York about how it may take 5 years for the city to fully reemerge with tourism and the vibrancy that we all know and love from New York. But I think, in terms of market week, and we can discuss this, and John's downtown all the time meeting with a lot of the different companies there. But I think there is a thirst to get back and have human touch and contact like we once did. Business can be done digitally, but it can be done digitally really well, but you still need, I think, to sometimes put things over the top to look somebody in the eye. Still a little bit old school in that instance, but otherwise there's huge opportunities and efficiencies around all those conversations over the table. But I think, I think we're looking at, obviously it might be into next year, mid to late next year, where we start looking at what physical market weeks might happen. John, I don't know what you're thinking or what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're hearing, especially from brands too, like what's the appetite? Like, obviously they don't want to put people in danger. No one wants to be the super spreader brand that creates some problem.
Yeah, there's a couple points, and I'll reiterate what you said. The revival of New York City depends entirely on the effective distribution of a vaccine. People are not going to return to New York City until it's safe to do so. Obviously it was the epicenter back in March, April, for our country. And, for a large extent, the tourism aspect of New York City has grinded to a halt, unfortunately. So as soon as, again, as you said earlier in the call, there's been some really positive news in the last 10 days about, the effectiveness of vaccines. And now there's been a lot of talk about, hey, how are they going to be rolled out? How are they going to be administered? How are they going to be deployed? I think once that happens and the country starts having confidence in them, then you'll see companies follow suit. And Andy, I'll say it's more so on the retailers than it is the wholesalers. I think the wholesalers are a little more willing to reopen their showrooms and impose rules that say, okay, we're gonna limit the amount of people that come in. We're gonna have you do temperature checks and wear masks and socially distance inside and control their environment within their showrooms. But it really is, when are the retailers from across the country gonna feel confident putting their buyers on an airplane and coming to Manhattan for 4 or 5 days to come to a market and see product? Because that's what really is going to turn the table to say, hey, we're open for business again, and we're going to go back to some level of normalcy in terms of collaboration. Because you're absolutely right. There's so much, people can get things done over Zoom or over Microsoft Teams or over virtual platforms, but the ability to touch and feel and see three-dimensionally product in person with the creator of that product, with the salesperson of that product, with the leader of that product group, and really takes it to another level, because you have so much knowledge in that partnership where collaboration and business planning and alterations that make sense for that independent retailer can take place. Because it's really clear that, hey, retail's going a couple different ways. Number one, it's going online. Brands have their own presence online. They have their own relationship with consumers. The big guys are getting bigger and more powerful. And then the really good independents are surviving and thriving because they're changing and adding a product mix that's different. Well, the first element of that, the direct-to-consumer business, I think the teams need to get together, and they need to collaborate together as a team. That can take place in offices. That's taking place right now, even with the pandemic. For wholesalers to meet with their major partners, that has to happen in person at some point, at some level. And whether that happens in a marketplace or that happens in the short term in the wholesaler's backyard remains to be seen. And then the third element is the littler guys. Like, they are still going to depend on some physical coming together, and whether that, and this platform can create those opportunities. As I said earlier, the dress market and the fast fashion market are very different from the athletic and the comfort. And maybe we create market weeks, and then there's silos in those market weeks that where certain elements of the business could come together in a meaningful way, and collaborate, and to make a marketplace that's meaningful for them. So there's a lot of different sub conversations that can take place. But again, I'm of this firm belief that as an industry that's always taken a lot of pride in being independent and being a community, physical collaboration and physically getting together is going to return to be a vital part of our existence. And so I'm happy and pleased to be helping lead that charge.
Hey, John, let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into the date issue, right? Because there's always been this push-pull, this tug of war around what dates work. And there really aren't perfect dates. You just kind of outlined why, the different segments of our industry and what makes them different as it relates to even the design and development dates. Does the platform itself or the siloed approach itself provide a little bit more opportunity to align dates in a more thoughtful way that meets the needs of everyone who's at this table that we've talked about? Or do you have to do a hybrid approach where everyone gets together and the market week may not be that important to certain brands, but they want to come together anyway and connect, while at the same time they're meeting with people on the side, or in the background is this 24/7 platform that's operating that allows for the continuation of buyers and sellers to connect?
Well, I don't think there is any perfect date. I think you can make an argument to meet probably 10 of 12 months of the year. And in terms of some people will believe that the right dates are anything from February through November through, again, it's crazy. You can make an argument for almost every month on the calendar why it would make sense for some aspect of the industry. So no, I don't think I think that's been the age old conversation and argument between different people is, hey, what are the right dates? And people will violently argue that August is the right date, and other groups will argue that May is the right date, and other groups will argue that June's the right date. I think the important thing is to realize that we've now, as an industry, figured out how to do it without having a physical presence. And if you take that and you layer that on top of this conversation, well, then the argument is that the dates become less important because everyone can still get the job done if the dates don't work out perfectly for them. Does that make any sense? And
yeah,
so
it makes a lot of sense.
I think it strengthens our argument to say, hey, this is not so much about finding the perfect date, but this is about finding the correct date where, as an industry, we can get together to collaborate and remain that independent community that we're also proud of being. And so, I think for 2021, FFANY has always had a stake in the sand in February, June, August, and December. Well, we've all talked about this last week on a marketplace working group call that February is not feasible. It's not going to happen, as Andy talked about and I talked about. There's not going to be a revival of New York City and a safety in New York City by February, because there won't be by that time an effective vaccine that people are confident in. They might be confident in it, but it won't be deployed. And so February is not going to happen. So we're holding out hope for June, Matt, where. Yeah. Just because that June has always been a staple on the footwear calendar, and maybe we can all get together in June and meet as a group. I know 210 wants to have a meeting, wants to have some of their fundraising activity in June, and we'd love to help them and help to help them with all the good work they do for the industry. And if not, maybe August, and if not, definitely December. So I think for 2021. We're going to fall back on tradition and say, hey, these are the 3 date options. Can we meet once? Can we meet twice? And that's what the working group initially is going to go off of. And those are the conversations I've had within the working group. And then really for this year, then open up the discussion about, hey, 2022 and beyond. everyone can kind of agree that that's going to be back to where travel is not going to be impeded. And so in 2022, we can almost hopefully set some schedule that can remain, and obviously everything will always remain fluid, but that we could say, put new stakes in the ground, saying this is when we as an industry are going to come together. This is where we're going to come together. And these are the activities that are going to take place when we come together. And so, dates are super important. But I think we have a really, with everything else kind of falling apart around us, I think we really have the opportunity to be a force for the industry and a light that everyone can come towards.
Who are some of the companies that have raised their hand and said, "Hey, we want to be a part of this, setting that path forward and driving the industry towards a marketplace that's vibrant"?
Yeah, it's a mix of wholesalers and retailers. From a wholesaler standpoint, H.H. Brown, Deer Stags, Pentland, Wolverine, Tom's, Timberland, BBC. From a retail standpoint, Nordstrom, Rack Room Off Broadway, Shoe Carnival, DSW. We have invitations out to several more. We've tried to select people that have been traditionally influential in the industry. And again, it's not exclusive by any means. I mean, it's open to any FDRA member that expresses interest. So if you're an FDRA member and you're interested in being part of this conversation, simple, just write an email to jheron@fdra.org, and I will include you in the group. So it's we can talk about it. So again, it's a working group meant for members of the FDRA, and we want to get as many people around the table as we can. I mean, obviously to a certain limitation. Because I think to have an effective conversation, you can't have 150 people on the call. But right now we've got about 12 or 13 confirmed people, and we've got about 7 or 8 more that have expressed interest, and we've invited that we'll hopefully confirm this week.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be a key component of something we haven't had as an organization for some time. We've always been interested in the health of the trade show industry and the various shows that footwear companies meet and sell product at. But we haven't been able to drive the strategy from a nationwide perspective. And so to have all those names at the table, I think is something that's really exciting. Speaking of people I would like at my table, always, Jasmine Pendergrass is always welcome at my table because she is just a delight to conversate with, to break bread with, and she always has really good insights. And this time she's going to surprise us, much like Andy's singing at the start. We don't know what segment we're doing. So Jasmine, why don't you lead us and let us know what segment we've got on for today's program?
So we're going to do a fashion footwear segment today, guys. I have a couple things. One of them, we haven't talked about this, and it's kind of like when I talk about the socks that people wear and things like that, it's kind of like an add-on to your shoe and an add-on to like your fashion statement. And I was curious if anybody has gotten into matching their mask with their outfit, just like you would a great pair of shoes with your outfit. Have y'all gotten into customizing your mask, or are you just wearing the regular old medical mask?
I want to hear what Andy has to say on this one because I suspect I don't know what Andy's been doing with his mass fashion.
Our family's divided on this. It's a huge issue. No, I'm kidding. I've just been wearing doctor masks and walking around saying doctor. But my kids have frozen masks. They have. Charlotte is in preschool, and the preschool requires them to wear masks all day, and that was when she went back was a big concern. But she's done really well with it. Has kids dive right in, and she's been talking about all her different masks that she wants now. So it's definitely it's not just the book bag or the shoes or the frozen shirt.
Accessorizing
everything with it, right? And now the mask is coming into play. And then I saw, as I always see on my front steps, boxes covering my steps where I can't even walk out every single day. Kelly just got in some new masks, some like holiday masks that are like tartan style.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so she's definitely got a variety of different masks that she wears. So I think for them, obviously, there's like a cute factor. For me, it's just time to make the donuts, right? Just walking out and wearing a normal mask. But yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, even if you look on the retail sites, they're already like promoting certain masks or trying to tie together accessories and stuff like that. And I don't think masks are going away over the next year. Even if we get these vaccines and people start, I'm probably still going to wear a mask at the airport, or if I ever go back on the metro and do mass transit, just for general well-being. I think this is going to be a big thing, and I think if brands think that it's just not, it's just a one-off. I mean, look at Asia. Those guys had a huge pandemic years ago, and they still wear masks. And every time I was over there, I was like, why are they doing this? Well, now we know.
Yeah, Andy, that's a great point. I mean, I lived in Asia in the late 90s, and even back then, when people are sick in Hong Kong and Tokyo, they wear masks, and they wear masks not to they wear masks to protect others from them. I would always look at them going like, oh my God, I'd roll my eyes and go, that's so ridiculous. I would never find myself wearing a mask. And they were pretty heavy duty masks. I think that's going to become the norm. When you're sick, you wear a mask. And again, especially like what you said about your daughters, that generation, it's somewhat normal. Yeah, it's not comfortable, but kids get it. Like, my wife tutors, and every kid that walks in our house to her office for their tutoring session has a mask on, doesn't complain, doesn't take it off. And so kids are good. Kids are much better than adults. Jasmine, to answer your question, I'm a big human. Well, my mask buying strategy has been the same as my strategy along my entire life. Whatever fits, I wear it. So I found this extra large cloth mask at Target, and I bought like 15 of them because if I wear a normal medical mask, it like squeezes my ears because it's too tight. And I wore that on a plane, and like I swear I had sore ears when I got off the other end. So I now just whatever I have this one great one that's a horrible pattern that I wear it all the time because it's comfortable. So I'm probably not the person to ask.
That's funny.
I'll bet there'll be like something like a hillbilly mask where it like looks like a beard that goes all the way down. People get really creative with this stuff, but I think the other problem is not just trend wise, but like wear the mask correctly. If you're gonna make an effort to put it on, cover your mouth and your nose. Please don't just cover your chin. Your chin doesn't have anything to do with COVID, people. Put the mask up. Stop complaining. I mean, this is, it's like, well, I can't, but yes, there are plenty of masks out. Like, there's some great masks from some of our members that are like people are running in these things as athletes. You can certainly get one of those off their website and wear it and be comfortable. So I have little tolerance for people at this point because it is all about, as the holiday season comes up, it's about supporting our fellow man and being there for them and thinking about others. Especially around Thanksgiving. And so we don't like to preach at people, but Polk will preach on this for sure.
Matt, you have a big household. What about the women in your household?
Yeah, no, we've gotten all in on the mask thing, right? So if you go to like place like redbubble.com, you can get pretty much any customized mask with anything on it that you want. So I've got a full beard one. I've got one with Nikes on it. I've got one. I gave one to my brother-in-law, which was Optimus Prime from Transformers. My dad, as a former pilot, has like a pilot mask one. When I go to church, I wear one with Da Vinci's Last Supper on it. So I'm all in on the mask front. And with the girls, we got Vera Bradley masks. We've got masks from Gap. We're drowning in masks. So it has been kind of a big accessory in the Priest household. And to Andy's point, we want to protect others from ourselves and be thoughtful. And so that's what we've done. And so everywhere we go, we wear masks, and it's been fun. It's I don't know. I don't understand why people fight it as much as they do. I understand we're an individualized society, and I get that. But at the same time, like, this is hardly a tough pill to swallow if you want to protect your fellow man and be on the other side of this healthy and happy and ready to move on and to gather again in person.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm a little late to the mask train as far as customization. I went somewhere and everybody had on a sparkly mask. I seen somebody with a Superman one on. And I never really thought about actually investing in some. But Target does have great ones. I agree with you, John. I get like the regular black ones from Target, and I really like those. But I was just curious. It's kind of like, you match for women. You match your handbags with your shoes and your belts with your shoes. So it was just like, okay, are people really getting into this more than what I think? And apparently, especially from the Priest household, they are. So,
yep.
I'm curious on that, but that's all good news.
Yeah, it'll only continue. I mean, I do think, just as John said, I think people will, this generation, our kids, my kids, will be a lot more thoughtful about others and wearing masks than some of this generation older generation who declared their freedom from sanity in some ways and declared there was a tyrannical approach to putting a textile over their mouth to help other people. So I think, when we step back and we get out of I think a lot of it's politics. When we get out of this political season and we come into the holidays, let's just all take a deep breath and just know that FDRA and FFANY has merged, and there's a new way forward, people. It's going to be exciting. We're going to have
new day.
Amazing market weeks. We're going to have new types of market weeks. We're going to have new products and services that people have never imagined that we could launch before, because we have all these brands at the table coming up with ideas of what could help the industry grow together. Obviously compete in the marketplace, as we always do. But there's so much that we can work on together behind the scenes to make our industry stronger. And that's really what this merger and this marriage is all about. So again, John dropped his email, but anybody can go to FDRA.org and learn more about our organization, association. If you're not involved, please get involved. Get at the table. Have a voice. Shape the future. Bring your ideas to the table. We really want to hear those. And as we go forward, there'll be more updates around market weeks and around all these great ideas that are percolating out in the industry. We're going to bring all those together and we're going to make this industry a lot stronger. And I think, Matt, you could kind of speak to this too on an optimistic note as we leave this episode, but you hear from CEOs every single day. And I think there's optimism as we look at 2020, even before these vaccines, that orders were picking up, people felt a lot better about next year than they did this year. Is that generally the consensus that you hear?
Yeah, I think it's a cautious optimism, which is an overused term. But I do think that there was basically, as we started to go into the pandemic, Andy, that there was doom and gloom, reforecasting out what the results would be, bottom of the barrel kind of stuff. And because of a lot of the innovation that's happened in retail, because of the direct-to-consumer strategies, because of stimulus, there's a lot of different variables that who've talked about a lot. Because a lot of those things, we saw better than expected results, which weren't, amazing in comparison to last year, but not as doom and gloom as was expected. And I think that there's a bullish nature for quite a few brands as to what spring 21 is going to look like, with orders being placed. And so I think there is a cautious optimism that we are going to come out of this. We'll be stronger, maybe more efficient, leaner for sure. But it's not going to be the end of the world, and we're headed into, I think, a brighter future. So all that is, you gotta put a ton of different clarifiers on that and hedge your bets all over the place. But right now, I think people are feeling like things are going better than they expected they would be at this point in the year.
Good, awesome. Well, that's a good way to end the show. John, thanks for joining as always. And Jasmine, for the masked episode, because I think that is on point and trend, and I think that will only continue further. Folks, thank you so much for listening. As always, shoeandshow.com. Our full library is on our website, shoeandshow.com. You can go back and catch other episodes. You can also subscribe on Spotify, on Apple, on any any audio platform out there. We're across the entire universe. We are the #1 podcast for shoe business. Now, I know there's some sneakerheads out there and they can all compete in that space, but when it comes to the business of the footwear industry, how we make decisions around business models and around optimization and all those things in backroom operations, all the way through retail and how consumers are changing, this is the #1 show, and this is your show. And to that end, please drop us a line and let us know what topics, what guest speakers you might like us to have on the show to flesh things out that might be of help to you. That is what we're all about. We're here to serve you guys. And again, we thank you guys for listening. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for the industry. We're grateful for the opportunity to serve. So on behalf of Matt, Jasmine, John, and myself, Andy, thank you for listening. And until next time, Shoe In is out, and put on that mask.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.